welcome back to the channel. This is Anna's Thoughts in Musical Parodies, and I am Anna, your hostess. Thank you so much for being here today. Being that I have a new baby on the way, any support for what I do here would be very, very greatly appreciated, and you can check out different options for doing that on the second page of the website that will be linked in the description of this video. I will also leave my PayPal link if anyone would like to just do a one-time donation. Thank you so much in advance to anyone who decides to support, and let's get into today's video. Reported by The Hill, bipartisan legislators demand answers from Fauci on cruel puppy experiments. Our investigators show that Fauci's NIH division shipped part of a $375,800 grant to a lab in Tunisia to drug beagles and lock their heads in mesh cages filled with hungry sandflies so that the insects could eat them alive. White Coat Waste said. So that article was from October 22nd of this year, but this was also actually reported on back in August by Fox News.
Records show the dogs endured months of pain, and once researchers were done with them, they were killed. Here to react, Justin Goodman of the White Coat Waste Project. Justin, let me begin with you. What did you find in terms of your research on this?
We track federal spending, particularly at the NIH, and through the Freedom of Information Act, we learned that the Fauci's division specifically recently contracted $400,000 for a university experiment where they bought 28 healthy beagles. The NIH website says they choose beagles because they're small and docile. Read, that means they are easy to abuse. They took these 28 healthy beagles, infected them with parasites by, as they've done in the past, strapping devices to them that allow flies to eat them alive, basically, give them parasites, and then they killed the dogs at the end of the study, even though they could have been rehabilitated and adopted out. This is a classic example of not following the science. These experimental drugs have already been extensively tested in other animals, including dogs, in the past. The FDA says that testing on dogs is not necessary. The EPA and the VA have ended dog testing or about to end dog testing, and the NIH admits that 90% of these animal tests fail to translate to humans.
Thankfully, multiple influential people in the government are taking notice of this and are very upset about it. As of October 25th, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida just called for Fauci to be fired and investigated for the illegal gain-of-function research and puppy torture. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. wrote a book called The Real Anthony Fauci, and said, quote, "In my latest book, The Real Anthony Fauci, Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the Global War on Democracy and Public Health, I take an in-depth look at the disastrous consequences of Dr. Anthony Fauci's 50-year reign as America's public health czar." And the person spearheading the effort of a bipartisan letter that is being sent to the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease is Nancy Mace, Congresswoman from South Carolina. This letter is demanding answers about the insane research from the NIAID and Mr. Fauci, and Nancy was recently interviewed about it on Newsmax.
In your letter, you wrote, in part, the fact that the invoice to NIAID included a line item for chordectomy. As you are likely aware, a chordectomy, also known as devocalization, involves slitting a dog's vocal cords in order to prevent them from barking, howling, or crying. This cruel procedure, which is opposed with rare exceptions by the American Veterinary Medical Association, the American Animal Hospital Association, and others, seems to have been performed so that experimenters would not have to listen to the pained cries of the beagle puppies. This is a reprehensible misuse of taxpayer funds. Have you received a response yet?
It's gruesome. Yeah, it's completely gruesome. And what we learned is that upwards of $1.7 million was spent via the NIAID, under the NIH, under Dr. Fauci, to debark and then drug, kill, and dissect 44 beagle puppies. I can't tell you, I've been a lifelong animal lover myself, and the fact that this still goes on and that we're using American taxpayer money to pay for it is disgusting. And I heard your segment earlier previously. I don't think there's anything we can trust Dr. Fauci with these days. He's got to go. He should be fired. We should have a hearing on this and many other things. He's been found over and over and over again to lie to the American people, to lie to Congress.
So I'm glad that some influential people are reacting and trying to do something about this insanity. But, this is not the first time that some living, breathing creatures allegedly have died while being involved in some way or another in some form of Anthony Fauci's work. Initially, we had the AIDS debacle back in the early 90s.
From the World Tribune, October 26, 2021. Flashback, Fauci's NIH-funded experiments on AIDS orphans in New York City. Dr. Anthony Fauci's National Institutes of Health approved drug trial experiments on hundreds of AIDS orphans in New York City. Over 200 of the orphans died during or after the experiments, according to Liam Sheff, the investigative reporter who broke the story.
And of course, Anthony Fauci is the face of, and some would say the so-called patron saint of the so-called Fauci ouchie.
The most recent reporting from the CDC's VAERS results shows that in the U.S. alone, over 9,000 people have died after taking the C-19 jab.
So Anthony Fauci went from being connected with an HIV situation where a lot of New York City orphans ended up dying, whether or not that was related to the experimental drugs that he gave them. And then we've been having a bunch of people dying after taking the special jab that he is so actively and enthusiastically promoting. And now we have some tortured and dead beagles as a result of the current work that Anthony Fauci is doing, allegedly as a result of. Pretty interesting pattern we've got going on here, isn't it? It's also very interesting to me that this has all mostly been coming out into the collective consciousness during this month of October, in which the pagan high holy day of Samhain or Halloween is celebrated. And you know what this makes me think of? Bear with me here, but you know how a lot of times serial killers tend to leave little like signatures of their work, what they've been doing, and they end up with a pseudonym that everybody tends to know about. It's a big sensational thing in the news, and basically the serial killers like to gloat about what they have been doing in this sort of way. The fact that this story came out during this time just, makes me think of something like that. So take from that what you will.
As a final closing thought, that thought process led me to research into blood sacrifice and modern paganism, which led me to this article from The Wild Hunt. And it was reported from some practicing pagans that some of them do currently, at least as of 2014 when this article was written, practice something called bloodletting from animals in order to worship some of their pagan gods. So, that's another interesting thought to think about.
And my final closing thought will be an encouragement to meditate on this biblical passage.
Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:10-12.
Thank you so much for being here today. Since you liked the video enough to make it all the way to the end, don't forget to click